and in particular, the strength of our bilateral relationship, Australian-Philippine relationship. So I'm very much indebted to all of you, and thank you so much for being with us here today. Look, it goes without saying, it's been another very exciting year for this wonderful bilateral relationship. I recall just less than a year ago, I was standing in front of all of you with all our wonderful staff from the embassy, and you will find that at your table you have at least one embassy colleague sitting with you, and that will actually show you how all our work is here in the Philippines. You know, we have many agencies, not just my department, the Foreign Affairs and Trade, but many agencies that have presence in the embassy, and this is why Australian Embassy here in the Philippines is, I understand, around 5th or 6th largest embassy in the world for Australia. So that's how significant our relationship is. And of course, amongst you are also our wonderful corporate partners. You had a fantastic roundtable before this, and I know you all had many interesting questions for them. And so thank you, my corporate partners, for being here today with us. Without you, none of this would be possible, and we certainly enjoy working with our business community very much. And today we have two extra very special guests with us. Some of you may already know, throughout this week, we had Indo-Pacific Endeavour 2024 happening. That is our flagship initiative for regional engagement on water, basically, and other ways. And of course, we have with us Commander Harris, who is in charge of the IPE 24, so we're very lucky to have him. We also have Air Commodore Haley, who is Director General in charge of ADF's operations and plans of the Joint Operations Command. So I feel extra powerful today because I have our wonderful colleagues here who may be able to answer some of your more detailed questions through Q&A. So watch the space. But I don't have a long time to cover the huge range of things we've achieved in just over a year. So let me get straight into this. As you all know, following the strategic partnership or elevation of our relationship to strategic partnership through our Prime Minister's visit in September last year, President Marcos put the cherry on top by doing a twin visit to Australia at the end of February and early March this year. I was really privileged to be able to accompany him to Australia for this historic visit. And let me tell you, my friends, when President Marcos stood in front of our joint parliament and addressed our joint parliament members of House of Reps and Senators and spoke about the strength of our relationship and how our two countries have to work together to protect what is so dear to us: the rules-based order, the international law, and of course our shared democracy. I had goosebumps all over my body. It was such a momentous occasion. And what was so pleasing about this visit was the bipartisan support of this very, very important relationship by the Australian Parliament, whether in opposition or in government. They all stood up to applaud President Marcos' address. They were also keen to engage with him, to talk about the importance of our bilateral relationship. So you could actually say Prime Minister's visit and then the President's visit really set the tone for this very important relationship. Since then, we have been working so hard to put our strategic partnership into action. these are not just words. These are not just some documents. We are putting a strategic partnership into action. And there's so much we've done in just 1 year, my friends, that I'm going to have to group what we've achieved into some broad categories. Let me first talk to you about what we've achieved in defense and security space. Just in our defense cooperation alone, through our military-to-military exercises. As you all know, I told you all about the IPE 24. We've done IPE 23 and IPE 24 in that last year. And of course, last year was really celebrated by the biggest amphibious exercise Australia had ever carried out outside Australia, right here in the Philippines, in Zambales, in fact. This year, I was privy to the desktop exercises they did around how our military and civil and actually the broader community, society would work together should there be the big earthquake that we all fear, right? So these are some of the things that were actually carried out through IPE 24. You would also be aware that we have done 3 maritime cooperative activities over that year. And you know how significant that is. We also, for the first time, participated in Exercise Balikatan. We've been observers previously. This time it was a big-scale participation and it was a huge success in the Philippines. And one of my favorites, Exercise Pitch Black. It was first time in many, many decades that your Air Force actually participated in an exercise overseas. And it was the first time ever that your assets were actually moved to join this exercise. So as you can see, what we are doing is enormous. Just to give you some quick figures, we've actually done, I don't have the, here it is, the right pamphlet. We actually do around 15 annual or biannual exercises across joint land, air, and maritime domains per year. Just think about that. That's an enormous number of exercises we do. Now, I have to hurry up because that is just the first of a very long list of work we've been doing this year. Our participation and our cooperation in the area of online sexual exploitation and abuse of children have continued. And our Australian Federal Police is working very closely with PNP and NBI to fight the good fight. This year alone, there were 48 operations, which led to 105 children being rescued with 34 charges. And out of that, 27 children were rescued as a result of direct effort by the Australian Federal Police. So these are some of the results that we are really proud of. Going right down to the list, counter-terrorism work. While the situation is much better here, this is a fight that we have to continue to focus on. And Australia has continued with our efforts in achieving peace and stability in Mindanao. And in fact, it was Prime Minister that announced our 2.4 billion peso program to achieve peace and stability in Mindanao. But of course, as the threats are shifting from internal to external threats, it goes without saying that we have been paying a lot of attention to maritime security. So our work in maritime security has only strengthened. And it was because of that, we now also have a representative from Australian Border Force permanently placed in the embassy to work closely with PCG. And this is coupled by our 328 million peso worth program on civil maritime capacity building. By the way, that is about to be doubled in our future program. because we recognize the importance of maritime security in the Philippines. But what's really exciting is that, to a large extent, this is the work that you have already heard much about. There are some emerging areas where we are doing more work together, and they are cybersecurity, not very surprising for all of you, I'm sure, and what we refer to as foreign interference, here as malign influence work. Some of these things also go to the heart of our national security, and we recognize that these have to also become important pillars of our cooperation between our two countries under the theme of defense and security. So moving to our development program, you also know, as our friends, how active Australia has been in this space. In fact, right now as we speak, we have 12 billion pesos worth of active bilateral aid program that we are currently working on in the Philippines. On average, it's around 3.6 billion pesos that we allocate to such bilateral program. By the way, that's actually excluding additional programs that are out there, which I want to also talk about. Some of them are regional initiatives, like in the space of infrastructure, investing in women, and also regional maritime initiatives, some of which are actually very, very big. And I'm so pleased to announce that the Philippines have been the major beneficiary of these regional programs as well. But of course, I've got some of my favorite projects as well through ASIA, our Australian Centre on International Agricultural Research, where in addition to our bilateral program, they've been rolling out really exciting programs like National Soil Health Strategy, like coral reef restoration, like working with clams and giant clams and sea cucumbers to really introduce that versatility for your economic livelihood. So these are some of the exciting things that we've been doing in the space of development. Soil health is one of my favorites because let's face it, agricultural productivity is a major concern for the Philippines, and we are here to help. And in fact, I had the pleasure of going and doing the soil turning ceremony with President Marcos in Agusan del Sur, because there, the local government unit, as well as the Congressman Plaza representing that region, have really taken on a strong champion leadership role, have decided to build their own soil laboratory. And in that process, the Australian government is helping them to design and develop and operationalize this lab to Australia's standard. And to help with that, we are already putting 2 scientists through Australian fully paid scholarship for soil science in Australia. So that when the lab is up and running, you've got the people with the right skills to work in those labs. So that's an example, and I just recently had this fantastic conversation with Secretary Laurel about how we can maximize the user needs, what the government's plans are around soil health and incorporating that as part of your agricultural agenda, and how Australia can help in this regard. So I don't know where to end because there are so many examples like that. Another one that I want to just quickly share with you is around Australian government's assistance that we are planning to provide to the Philippine government to stand up and operationalize an independent forensic institute. You can straight away see how something like that could make a huge difference to the Philippines in delivering justice for all. So we recently had 3 experts from Australia come over to take part in your symposium, where you were brainstorming how other countries do it and what it would take for the Philippines to adopt such an institute. So really exciting times. We already have UP and Monash University from Australia talking about actually creating a joint master's program that will help to upskill your medical practitioners in the area of forensic medicine. So watch the space, everyone. So going right along. So what about trade and investment? I know you just had a fantastic roundtable. You know, I would say out of all the areas of our corporation, this is the area where Australia certainly felt it was a little bit underdone. That there's so much potential, and yet it was like two ships passing in the night, not quite linking enough. Of course, we have our 250 Australian companies, large companies, because there are many more small companies who employ 40,000 Filipinos in the Philippines who are doing extremely well. And you've met some of them today, right? Who are doing extremely well, who contribute enormously to the Philippines. But we can do better. And in recognition of this, the Australian government launched its Southeast Asia Economic Strategy to 2040. And since then, let me tell you, we have been working so hard. And I'm pleased to say that it's already bearing fruit. So one of the things that was announced was the need for raising awareness. And as a result, Australian government recently organized a supercharged business mission to the Philippines. It was made up of 14 CEOs and very senior representatives of Australian companies and institutional investors. In fact, 3 institutional investors, just 3 of them, their combined asset under management was worth $1.7 trillion. Yep, you heard that correctly, not billion, but trillion dollars. Right, so these are big guys with plenty of room to invest in the Philippines. And you know what was so amazing and wonderful about this mission? They came along, frankly, quite skeptical to begin with. And of course, this was led by none other than the CEO of Macquarie Group, Shimara Wikramanayaka, who is very well known to the Philippines because Macquarie has done very well investing in the Philippines for 20 years now. But even with the leadership, others who followed were initially like, let's see. By the time they left after a 2-day program, they were all absolutely wowed by the opportunities that exist in the Philippines. They were so pleased with what the government is trying to do here. They were so pleased with the cooperation and what I describe as the red carpet treatment from the Philippine government as well as your business community. You would have been so amazed by the welcome that this delegation received from your conglomerates as well as very senior ministers. In fact, while they were here, they actually engaged with 8 cabinet secretaries. 2 days, 8 cabinet secretaries, and basically all of the key conglomerates that exist in the Philippines. So they went away very excited in the area of agri-food, mining, green energy investment, and many other areas. So it's done, but the embassy is even busier than ever because now we're following up on all the different leads that actually were generated by this amazing mission. In addition, what the Australian government has done is create a $2 billion, Australian $2 billion financing facility for Southeast Asia. And what that means is that through our Export Financing Australia, we will now be able to put our money where our mouth is in projects that are strategically important in the Philippines. And as the Australian ambassador to the Philippines, my objective is to try and get as much of that $2 billion directed to the Philippines, and we are busily working on that. And to complement all that effort, we have also created what's called a deals team. That's basically a cross-agency team within the Australian government, embedded into all the embassies across Southeast Asia, and of course in Manila we've got them as well, to help identify projects and match them to potential Australian investors. So all that work is underway as we speak. So you can see how exciting this space is. It's really striking that despite this huge economic growth that you're going through, and despite your wonderful asset, the people here, and despite endowed natural resources you have in this country, that Australia-Philippine bilateral trade relationship is only Australia's 15th largest. That's not good enough. You shouldn't be 15. You should be at least in top 10. That's what we've got to work towards, right? And it's the same story in the investment space as well. And so we are all working hard to achieve more investment, more trade, not just one way, but two ways. Why? Yes, there's a commercial imperative for why we want to do that, because we both want our countries to be prosperous. But there's also another really important reason why we need to do that. And that's because economic power equals strategic power. And we all know that we live in a very complex world with lots of challenges. Both Australia and the Philippines, we need as much strategic power as we can get. And we know that one significant way we can support the Philippines is through helping you grow economically. So we are absolutely committed to helping the Philippines achieve your upper middle income economy status as soon as it can. And we want to be a significant partner to you in achieving that objective. So then that leaves me with the final element of our cooperation, which is people-to-people links. Because frankly, that's what underpins the strength of this bilateral strategic partnership. And as many of you probably will already know, we have very strong relationship there. We have over 400,000 Filipino Australians who call Australia home, our fifth largest diaspora community. On top of that, we have around 32,000 students currently studying in Australia, creating these wonderful links. And of course, we have more than 3,000 awardees who have been the beneficiary of the Australian government's scholarship over many years. And you will be really surprised with this. And did you know that in 2023, we had only 80,280 Filipinos visiting Australia, but we actually had 250,000 Australians visiting the Philippines. This is fast becoming a fantastic destination for travel and for catching up with family and friends for Australians. So all these things are underpinning the strength of our bilateral relationship. And we will continue to provide excellent scholarships so we can have more bright, wonderful, driven Filipinos receiving Australian education, then coming back absolutely, jumping at the bits to contribute back to the Philippines. Because I know these people will continue to carry part of Australia in their hearts and become Australian ambassadors, just like me, to build bridges between our two countries, to further strengthen our ties between our countries. So I'm going to step there. As you can see, there's a lot that I needed to cover, and I've given you a very, very, very high-level overview of exactly what we've achieved in just 1 year. But I'm going to stop there to give you an opportunity to ask some questions so that I can go into a bit more detail in some of those areas. So thank you. Thank you for your attention.